Coming up on today's show, we'll discuss the Matthew Stafford injury. We will have some Shedeur Sanders conversation with the latest on James Cook as well. And wrapping up, we'll hit even more injury stuff, which I think is at least a slight concern at this time, the Jordan Love injury. All right, before we get into all of that, I want you guys to shout out your favorite NFL team in the comments of today's show. I've done this in a while. It's always a good one to check in with who is the biggest fan bases out there. So let me know in the comments section of today's show. Shout out your favorite team with who has been most impressive so far, or I should say who is your favorite team in the NFL. Let's go to Matthew Stafford. And this one does raise concerns for me. The back injury is an issue, very clearly. Originally, the reporting was he was supposed to practice on Monday. Threw 68 passes on Saturday, but then, he actually didn't feel good enough to throw on Monday, which that's not good. You finally had like a day's workload and you don't feel good enough to practice the next day. By the way, didn't practice on Tuesday either. Sean McVay discussing this with reporters, asked, has surgery come up? Good question to ask. He said no, it hasn't come up as an option. I will also say this. I don't think Sean McVay would have admitted if surgery had come up as an option. That's not a good thing to ever be discussing, and you don't want that to get out even if it has been discussed until after it essentially is decided there. Of note, Stafford on Tuesday was not out there with the quarterback, so we went from he's going to be back on Monday to, well, he's actually out still. And I kind of worry there was some type of setback. That's what I'm worried about here. Here was the exact quote from Sean McVay to reporters. Also, what ended up happening, had a great workout, felt good, but then came in today. It doesn't feel great. Didn't think that was the right decision to be able to push him. We always talk about being flexible, being fluid with some of the plans. I think more than anything, I feel for a guy that I really care about that wants to be out there more than anything else, but we're going to be smart. He didn't feel good enough, and we didn't think it was the right thing to do based on how he woke up feeling today. Again, this quote was on Monday. Also did not practice on Tuesday. This has to be a concern for the Rams and the fans and McVay himself. You have a 37-year-old quarterback who objectively has a bad back now. That worries you. Like, when you get, especially in football, but at any age, hey, your back normally doesn't get better. Like, that might not be better as we move forward. So, yeah, I am worried about the Matthew Stafford injury. So, what's your concern level over Stafford's injury? 1 to 10 is your scale. Let me know at the pinned comments of today's video. What is your concern level over the Matthew Stafford injury? 1, obviously, on the low end. 10 is the highest end. I'm at like a 5 or a 6, but let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's discuss the Shedeur Sanders performance, even though this conversation always gets pushed to the extremes one way or the other. Overall, relative to expectations of a 5th-round pick in the preseason, with backups really only playing, Carolina played their starting offense a little bit. We should always have the proper context here. Relative to all of that, I thought he played pretty well. Now the question becomes, okay, what's next? How does he improve upon what he did? Where does the overall quarterback battle sit? There were good things Shedeur Sanders did. There's room for improvement as well. I don't think any one individual preseason game actually defines a player. I think that's a little silly when we try to do that. But overall, in the work he got in the preseason, some positives. 61%, I think I'd like that number to be a little bit higher. There's a reason why that number was a little bit lower in the end. The passing yards were good. The average was solid. He showcased some good mobility as well. Held onto the football. Made some nice touchdown plays in the red zone. Overall, there was clearly a lot to like about Shedeur Sanders' debut for the Browns. And in many ways, both good and the bad we'll get to, it was a lot of the same stuff we saw at Colorado. And why there were people who liked him coming out. He was generally pretty darn accurate. There were some misses, a couple moments under pressure he missed, but he mostly handled pressure well. He saw a lot of that at Colorado. Some of it, as we'll get into, is self-inflicted. Like, that is worth mentioning as well. We'll get to that. But I think stuff like under pressure, the blitz, if you're good in those areas, that normally indicates you have a chance to make it as an NFL QB. And there clearly is talent for Shedeur Sanders. 50% under pressure, 8.3 yards per attempt. 4 of 8, 66 yards under pressure. Relative to most quarterbacks, that was actually very good. And he was also really good against the blitz. When blitzed, he was 6 of 7, 62 yards, 8.9 yards per attempt, both touchdowns. Oftentimes, you see some quarterbacks wilt under pressure, wilt when there's blitzes in front of them. And if you can handle that stuff, again, not always, but can indicate some success in general in the NFL. We'll get to some of the downsides from Shedeur's performance because there is stuff to improve on. How would you grade it? A, B, C, D, or F? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. How would you grade the Shedeur Sanders performance? Now, look, I think overall, it was good. That doesn't mean it was perfect or that he's suddenly a top 10 quarterback. I don't think anyone's actually making that argument. But this is a good first step in the preseason process for Shedeur Sanders. And look, the number one area he's got to work on, and it was true at his time with his time in Colorado, the ball's got to get out faster. And this is how he kind of gets himself into trouble at times when he holds the ball too long, misses the initial read or doesn't pull the trigger on it fast enough. When he plays on time, he's super accurate. He doesn't always play on time. His average time to throw in the first game of the preseason was 3.48 seconds. Now, if you had at least 8 dropbacks, so I'm kind of trying to take out there were some guys played 5 snaps. One of them was a runaround scramble. Let's just try to eliminate that figure. Was the most among all NFL QBs. And, that would have been the longest in the NFL last year. Ball's got to get out faster. What does that mean for him as the Browns move forward? I still think Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. He is the stable veteran mentor. He was the one smiling on the sidelines when Shedeur was making plays. Kenny Pickett is still a little bit banged up. Dylan Gabriel is closer to being fully back. Look, the Browns invested more in Dylan Gabriel. That will not be ignored. But I think relative to what we saw in the first preseason game, obviously Gabriel did not play. What we saw in college, I think Shedeur is more intriguing. The setup to fail narrative that was suggested by big media, I think was stupid, frankly. He's set up to fail with the starters, but the starters weren't playing. He's playing with other backups he's gotten work with. What are we doing out here? There's no grand conspiracy, as I've also seen out there, to teach Shedeur a lesson or some stupid. That's how football works sometimes. If you didn't interview well, you're not going to get the job. That happens. That's how football is, frankly. I think Joe Flacco still starts week 1. I think that is the most likely outcome here. I kind of don't want the Browns to do the Kenny Pickett experiment, period. Because I've seen that experiment and it's bad. I would rather see Shedeur than Dylan Gabriel. I kind of think in the end there's a good chance we see both of those players. Gabriel's going to get his chance in the preseason too. And I think how those guys practice, of course, is so impactful as well. But for step 1 of the games, it was a good first step for Shedeur. NFL hoodies are on sale. Chatsports.com/NFL hoodie. They were $55. Now they are just $33. Variety of different hoodies for different teams, etc. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/NFL hoodie. Let's hit some more quarterback injury news here. Jordan Love undergoing surgery for a ligament issue in his left thumb. Better than the right thumb. The Packers reportedly think he's got a chance to return for week 1. Heck, maybe he's back as soon as next week, which, cool, good. This, for me, is not as concerning as the Matthew Stafford side of it, but I am worried about him being able to stay healthy. This has been an issue before. And when you're young and consistently finding ways to get banged up, fair or not, I do get concerned that this is going to be a continual thing for Jordan Love, who, when he's on the best version of his game, he's really impressive. But I think you need to have a lot more of that on a consistent basis. Now, if you want even more NFL news, rumors, trades, updates, mailbags, everything else in between, you've come to the right spot. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. One other news item. Again, I told you it was mostly news updates today. James Cook, interesting developments here. He ended his hold-in at Bills training camp after about 9 days and returned to practice, which I think is a good thing for the Bills and everybody involved there. Sean McDermott said that things have changed. He did not say what those things are, and maybe he literally meant things was just the status of James Cook. I'm not totally sure. I am curious what the eventual conclusion is for this saga here. Kyron Williams kind of maybe set a baseline for the James Cook contract at $11 million, but I also know he was kind of angling for the $15, $14 million price tag, which I like James Cook a lot. I question if he is actually worth that figure. Can you get more into that $12 million range? Is that reasonable for both sides? And given the running back issues, of getting paid, period, and their shelf lives, maybe you would actually, if you're James Cook, be okay, going down that path. So we'll see how it plays out in the backfield and the contract side, but I think the two sides can make it work in the end for Cook.